I have found that you can, like, 2 months ago, I knew about the Chrome Task Manager, but I never got in it to play around. So.
And my Mac hasn't crashed yet.
Yay! So you had a loose power cable.
Yeah, it's a Mac Mini. It's one of those real small, smallest possible box you can. And I opened it up to replace the hard drive with an SSD. And when you put it all back together again, there's this the last step.
Manager, but I never got in it to play around.
There's this fan, and it has this. I mean, I don't know who humanly is capable of seeing this stuff.
My Mac hasn't crashed
yet.
Yay! So you had a loose power cable.
You pop it in the motherboard. It's a Mac Mini. It's one of those.
We're testing Miles's ability to focus right now.
Box you can. Anyway,
that was awesome.
Apparently it's working. I'm trying to feel if there's a fan running. There probably isn't, but
so you have the Mac Mini. I have the Intel version of that, the Intel Nook, which is exactly the same thing. It's basically the laptop guts with no screen.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so we are in fact streaming. Audio sounded fine. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't a podcast, but I was doing something where I was speaking for a significant period of time, and there was a feedback loop of myself delayed by, like, it wasn't a few milliseconds. It was like 2-second delay. And I swear that was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
That is hard to do whenever, very hard to do.
Yeah, that'll put you off your game.
Like every now and then you'll see a newscaster just rip the IEB out of his ear, and that's exactly what has happened. He's or sometimes there's feedback, but usually there's a loop, and it's like I can't do that. Okay, I think I'm finally ready. Please begin. Hold up. Now, please begin your local recording devices at this time.
Ooh, it hasn't crashed yet.
Electron rearrangement commencing.
That is a very apt description of the process, particularly with an SSD.
See, I try to make my technobabble relevant to what I'm saying and not just random crap thrown out there.
Oh. So I'll talk about it in a couple of minutes. I'm going to try. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to do timers the way my thing is running right now. Like, if it takes me 4 minutes to start a 5-minute timer, probably not a good value exchange there. Okay.
You could get like a sundial or a water clock, something.
Well, last week I just hit the timer on my phone and just watched it. I didn't have segment timers. I just had the overall show timer, and we went over a couple of minutes, but not like the 2-hour mini series events that we used to do.
Right. I miss but don't miss those days.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, the fact is we rarely actually had anything to talk about for that long.
Right.
And when we started putting a limit on our time, we had to focus and actually get to the point.
Yeah.
All right, agenda's here. We can start now. So I'm going to go ahead and watch the little hourglass spin for a little while. That's what I'm going to do. All right. I'll make a marker over here, and I'm going to say, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geek Rant, episode 349. Better late than even later. Recorded February 17th, 2019. And brought to you by Element OP Productions. Element OP GeekRant.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Drive Time Radio for Geeks. It is not 1 month in the past. It is actually February. My name is Mark, occasionally, on very rare moments, known as the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel. And joining me this week, as always, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles, the Aussie Junior Wakeham. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Mark, and welcome to the Faithful Opiates. Glad you're here.
It's a national emergency.
Yes, we need a wall. It's an emergency. I don't even want to go there.
No.
So, Seth, we'll just jump straight to your... I don't remember if I talked about this movie after I watched it. But if I didn't, it's only because there was nothing worth talking about. So tell us what you thought about Downsizing, the movie.
Well, this is one of those movies, and of course they often do this, but all of the trailers and everything I saw pitched Downsizing as a comedy,
a rom-com at that.
Yeah, and it was nothing like that. It was, I don't know. It ended up being, to me, kind of a dark movie, very much slice of life. It's just somehow they invented, this technology to shrink you down to action figure size. And, in spite of all the medical problems, there's one line of dialogue that kind of addresses it. And then it was just weird. And it was like, I had a conversation with somebody about a month ago. We were talking about this movie, and then I got trapped on the Amazon list about all the, everybody does it. You go in and you just start, well, okay, what are my movie options, and 20 minutes later you're still looking through everything. And then, but anyway, I was like, oh, Downsizing, okay, cool, I'm just gonna pick that. I got to get out of this loop. And I watched it and I was like, okay, what did I watch? And
yeah,
it was, to me, it was sort of like, oh, what was that movie that had like everybody in it? Gene Hackman, Angela Houston, the Royal Tenenbaums. It was sort of like that movie, but not nearly as funny. And I didn't think the Royal Tenenbaums was funny at all. So this was, I was very let down by this movie. That's just not, so have it on in the background whenever you're leaving the house or something. That's my recommendation for the film.
Yeah, I would say that Matt Damon really went downhill immediately after Good Will Hunting. He has done some moderately successful things, and he's been moderately successful in a few things. But he is just not the kind of actor that can carry a movie like that. And the movie was just weird. And I like weird. It was just not a good weird. There wasn't a good payoff to the weird.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was like, if you saw Little Miss Sunshine, that movie was weird, but there was such an awesome payoff at the end. It was like this guffaw laughter that just, for me, how absurd the ending scene was, that just, it made the movie worth it. There was nothing at this movie. There was just, this little scene of Matt Damon making peace with his life finally, and that was it. Spoiler alert. There's this one scene where they're closing the bunker, and and then the horns sound, and you're expecting this big explosion, and it's this little pop, and I was expecting this big explosion, and I got a little pop, and that one scene encapsulated. It was like, okay, that little event made me smile, but it wasn't funny. It was mildly humorous, and that was kind of like the whole movie.
So this week was Valentine's Day. We didn't mention it.
Singles Depression Day.
Or Singles Awareness Day, whatever you want to call that. And so it was Thursday, middle of the week. We had kids at home. Actually, one of my kids was home sick that day, so there was no romantic dinner out. Actually, we still haven't done that because life, when you're in your mid 40s with kids, you don't have those Valentines and roses things. But so we're sitting on the couch after the kids went to bed, and my wife's like, we need to watch, a Valentine's movie. I said, oh, so you want a timeless classic love story. All right, how about Gladiator or maybe Braveheart? She didn't like either of those choices. I don't know why, because they are, in fact, the ultimate in classic love stories, both men who gave everything for the women they loved. But instead, we settled on True Lies. So that was our Thanksgiving or Valentine's Day love movie about a man who sacrifices everything for the woman he loves.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then, like, you know, I'm sure there was a Hallmark movie somewhere, but I'm fortunate enough to have married a woman who likes to watch, you know, guys blow stuff up sometimes. So good stuff there. And Miles, your wife likes to get hacked.
Yeah, it happens, I guess. Sitting down watching TV. I don't think it was Valentine's Day. I think it might have been the day before. And all of a sudden her phone starts ding, 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 ding. Emails flooding in, hundreds of emails flooding in from all these supposed website forums and shopping commerce things on the web that she had not signed up for, but apparently were now sending her emails saying she had. Not sure exactly how this happened. Next thing you know, PayPal starting to show charges like $800 here and there from different stores. Some of them got immediately rolled back. Some of them did not. We had to contact, get our American Express card changed over that was associated with it, the whole bit. I thought that maybe somehow somebody had gotten into her email and they had, gotten past the password and then had used her email account to register on one service and then, multiply that by 1,000. Went through my email server logs and there was no evidence whatsoever that this had happened. So it looks like what's happened out there is that her name, like we're probably all on some list of hacked emails. If you ever go to haveyoubeenpwned.com and search yourself, you'll find yourself on a dozen of them. And I guess that she was on that and somebody had grabbed her email address and probably an old password which didn't work anywhere and just used it to register on a bunch of sites. And the ones that didn't require an email confirmation were good enough and they could use her email and credentials and whatever to apply some purchase and hopefully get product and return it and get money back or whatever. And anyway, at least we're on top of it, but this stuff happens. I guess it happens to all of us at one point in a while, but it's just interesting to see it happen in real time.
You said something, just a throwaway line there, that you have your eBay, your PayPal account linked to a credit card. Well, you get various purchase protections from both eBay and from the credit card, PayPal. I keep saying eBay. They used to be the same company. From both those companies when you do that. I have my PayPal account linked directly to my bank account, in which case I would not get that protection. I would still have the protection that PayPal offers. So I think at the end of the show, I am going to go change that just for that very reason.
Yeah. I'm not sure how. I mean, we've obviously changed passwords and I made sure she had two-factor authentication and everything, but I'm not exactly sure how they managed to do this. And I don't necessarily think that this was a flaw in PayPal or even her account or getting access to her account. I think it was more to do with the vendor. It's almost like the vendor was charging things they shouldn't have been doing without proper authority from the customer. So anyway, just be aware. It's important that we all monitor our credit statements and monitor our purchases. And if you see a big flood of emails coming in showing you've been registered. Oh, the interesting thing, funny thing, half of the emails were in Russian and the other half were in Chinese. So we're trying to work out where this came from, but clearly it's an Asian or Russian, origination.
Quite possibly a botnet, just fully automated.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, well, that's disappointing. But some sage advice there from Miles. Check your stuff regularly. I know a lot of people who don't ever check any of their bank accounts, ever. And I don't know why. I mean, I haven't sat down with a check register and balanced a checkbook in over 15 years. But I do keep regular tabs on my electronic activities. But you know, I just don't understand people who just hope all that goes okay.
Yeah,
It's like I gave up checkbook registering balancing a couple of years ago, but I go into my checking account and I go, yep, nothing there I'm not expecting.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that'll work.
Right. And I frequently ask my wife, what is this? You know, because on if you use a debit card, you often will get something, it says like, you know, Falstaff Incorporated when it's the Circle K down the street. It's, you know, whoever does their processing. And so like every couple of days, I usually have to ask about something. And it's always something my wife did. And not because I can't trust my wife, but just because I know what I did, right? I see the amounts and I see the locations. I know what that is, so I have to ask. And that's the modern version of checkbook balancing.
yeah, it really is. And I've actually called the credit card company and go, I have no idea what that is. And then I like, oh, wait a minute, that was, you know, it was something. So then, you know, a couple of days later, I was like, okay, I know what that charge was, but I didn't recognize the name. So you can go ahead and authorize it. So, you know, because I figure better to make them wait on the money than let something pass that you don't. Oh, I'm sure I did something and I forgot it. You know, you don't want to do that.
Right. All right, so this week we're continuing our financial February theme, and so the way this is working, in case you didn't notice, because we've only done one so far, was Miles took 1 week, Seth is taking another week, I'll take next week. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week, but it'll have something even somewhat vaguely related to finances. And this week I have no idea what Seth's going to talk about, so I can't really give a proper introduction. So Seth, go.
Okay, so financial February, and it actually ties in with the title of the show, better late than even later. I had kind of an aha moment a few months ago. I was sitting around at work, sitting with a lot of techs that are a lot younger than me, going, you know, I'm not like the kid I used to be. I've got to start, you know, what's my retirement looking like? And I go, I got nothing there. I was like, oh crap. So I was like, you know, got to do something. And so combination of getting my money working for me rather than me working for my money, and doing the vaunted side hustle that everybody is seeking to run with. And so, you know, it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? When's the second best time now? When's the best time to invest in the market last year, kind of thing. It's like, if you're barely treading water, or if you're, you know, you're a little bit behind, or you're worried about the future, you need to start doing some things now rather than just wait, because, you know, one of the greatest laws in the financial universe is compounding interest. And if you carry a balance on your credit card, you understand how much that can steal from you. But if you carry a balance in savings, you understand how great that can benefit you. So, you know, I mean, I've got a little bit in savings and I'm working on that, but I wanted, you know, you can't really get out of the rat race working for the man. So I decided, you know, side hustle. And a friend of mine was talking about a coffee shop, and I remembered, you know, the Coffee Talk episode that was, I believe, 117 many years ago. And I went back and listened. I was like, you know, I can do that. I've always thought about that episode and wanted to do it. And the weird thing is, I'm the one guy that doesn't like any coffee I've ever tasted. And so here I am. I started a coffee business, and you know, and of course I spent some time talking it over with a partner, and I have a partner, so he's like the minority owner, I'm majority owner, because I know me, if it's just me, I'll have a bad weekend and get fed up and leave. So I get a partner in there to keep me going and to keep me pushing forward. And so, you know, there's upfront costs. You're not going to get something for nothing. So I figure we could just kind of maybe have a round table discussion talking about side hustles and running a business while you're still working a job. You know, you hear a lot of people who were in real estate and end up doing that. But for me, I call the coffee business, Free State Coffee. That's what I named it. But I call it my gateway business, because it kind of, I don't think this will be the only thing I ever do, but it's my gateway into the financial independence. Maybe not retire early, but find the FIRE world. It's kind of getting me to look and do things for myself rather than just kind of deal with what happens. And so, the thing is, there's a lot of money involved. I mean, you can do something, but I got the LLC taxpayer ID number and all that kind of stuff. And, and that set back. And then I spent some time testing this brand of coffee, that brand of coffee. What did people think about that? But then there came a time where it's like, okay, I got enough data. I got to start doing something. And so I was like, I took my little testing kit and I'm selling coffee now. And, I'm not like super rich, but I've already increased February sales have beat January sales. I broke the $100 barrier. I have a business customer now that's a bar, and hopefully that will grow. But I've got to figure out a way to get production up, and that involves buying bigger hardware to go places and do things. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm starting now because I don't want to start later when I have even less time. And so, try some things, be willing to fail, risk some things, and then you can get somewhere. I know that doesn't really, hopefully that's not the end of the conversation, or this will be a super short show. But so what do you guys comments on that? Build off of it?
Well, I have a question for you. So what happens if the side hustle, the coffee, we'll just talk about that, doesn't go the way you plan? I mean, what's plan B?
I don't know, because I'm not sure. I'm working on this now, but I'm still saving, in investing money, so that way if it doesn't work, then I will try something else. So, and I haven't quit my job. I still have my job, and I'm still working on that as well as doing this. So, and then I'm looking out at other opportunities to see what's out there, but nothing has kind of caught my imagination or fired it like this has. And if it ends up where this is never big, but I can sell to coworkers and friends and make a little bit of money, then hey, I can do it as a hobby and not as a job, and then look for a different side hustle. So
I asked that question for a very specific reason. About 9 years ago or so, I started a little side hustle with the idea of making it my second career. It would be the thing that I retired from doing, and that was podcasting. And 9 years in, I have yet to make any significant money. It's a thing that I still do because I enjoy doing it, but I no longer do 8 shows a week. I no longer I have lost the delusions of making money at this. It is a thing that I enjoy, so I keep doing it, but I no longer expect it to pay off.
You're right. And so, one, I have come to realize I enjoy the whole process, from the grinding and the measuring and the filtering and all of that is I super enjoy it, and it's weird and I don't know why, but I do. But like I say, I see this as changing my mindset and kind of developing that entrepreneurial spirit, rather than just like, oh, one day closer to retirement. Oh, I got done with that. Oh, come on, weekend, give me some free time. Now it's like, oh crap, the weekend's coming. I got to get up early and filter some coffee and, and do that kind of stuff. So I see this as a gateway into the entrepreneurial type world, because that's never, maybe it was a long time ago, but for the past years, that's not really been my personality. My personality is, let me go there and work this job. Okay, job's over. Now I got a little free time. And so now it's like, how can I work on sales? How can I work on my product? What can I do from marketing? Are there any other opportunities out there that would be worth it? Do I even just quit my job and, try to open up a coffee shop somewhere and, all that kind of stuff. So I call this my gateway business.
Yeah. Just one thing that a lot of people think they have a business when really they have a job. They have a job that they pay to do, or that they're not making any money at. The difference between a business and a hobby is, do you make money? Do you actually it's not enough to be self-sustaining, right? So if you're making $50,000 a year after you're done with all your expenses, then that's making a living at it. But if you're clearing, just a little bit, you're spending a lot of time. So just something to think about. When a lot of times people will follow their passion, so to speak, and then find that nobody actually wants to pay them for their passion. Miles is Mr. Side Hustle. I'm interested to see what he has to say about this.
Yeah.
I think that if you don't start something and do something with that spare time and apply it, in some fashion to the journey of life and bettering yourself in whatever your pursuits are, you will never encounter the wonderful experiences along the way. And oftentimes those experiences become the mission. You don't really know until you're out there. A lot of business owners that go out have these preconceived ideas about some venture they've pitched, to somebody in the Silicon Valley, or this great idea they've always wanted to do, and they talk to you about it, and what do you think of this and what do you think of that? And my attitude is, well, we'll see. I don't know what's going to make bazillion dollars for anybody. But I know one thing, unless they go out there and try, they're never going to encounter maybe the things along the way that might have made them that money. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't start somewhere. That's kind of my attitude. And so I say all power to you, Seth. I mean, you may discover that this isn't the business that is going to make you, financially independent, but you might just discover along the way that the machinery that you use to, make the coffee, you discover, this is really poorly done. I can do a better way of this. And then you invent a piece of machinery, and next thing you know, you patent it. And the day after that, you're a bazillionaire because everybody else worked it out, that you need, they needed it too. And, you scratch your own itch. That's always how it's worked for me. It's not like my first ever entrepreneurial experience when I was a kid isn't what I do today. It's all the things I discovered along the way that turned into my businesses.
Yeah. And, and like the thing is, like right now, if I take what I've done, say for the last 3 weeks, and if I stay at that level, by the end of the year, I will have paid off like the LLC and the web hosting and stuff, and I will be pretty much broke even at that point. So, it's not like I started a business yesterday and so tomorrow I'm a millionaire, but I've been growing slowly and steadily because I am trying to do it on the side. And at this stage, I don't want it to get too big because, it's like, okay, I've got this product, I'm ready to go. And now I'm going to start doing it and see how I can refine it to make it get bigger. And I've already chopped a lot of time off it takes me to do this to allow me to do more going forward. But I kind of hit that moment where it's like, okay, time to launch. And okay, I didn't do much this week. Next week I did a little bit more, and then the next week I did a little bit more, and then hey, one of the bartenders, I sell to a couple of bartenders at some bars, and then I sell to a manager, and then the manager liked it, so she bought some for that bar, and we'll see how it goes. I got a follow-up meeting with them on Monday. So even though we incorporated in November and I started kind of giving out samples, I started selling in January, and mid-February I had my first business customer, and very small, not super big, but it's growing. And so Monday I want to have a follow-up and see how it goes, and we'll go from there. So, and that's the thing, you can't wait till you're 59 and build some business so you can retire at 60. So, I'm starting now, and at the stage I'm at, I'm making money from this point going forward, not enough to live on, but enough to cover my expenses and put some money in my pocket. So, and then if it dries up later, hey, okay. But if it's got me looking at, what can I be doing to maximize my time versus, I don't watch near as much TV now. It's amazing how much time that frees up. And also what can I do with my money to get my money working for me? Are there good investments out there, or are there other things I can buy to, so like I say, this business is teaching me a lot of stuff I've talked about before, but never ever done. I'm starting to do. And so, book knowledge is great. And then you try to do it and you're like, oh, that's what that meant. And
by the way, I can't find you on Google at all. So
really,
I've been searching ever since you said Free State Coffee, various permutations of the URL and of the searches and of Anderson and of Seth, and I got nothing. So
it's freestatecoffeellc.com.
Yeah,
that's the website. So
right.
Yeah,
you just might want to spend some time on that. I recognize that your model right now doesn't involve online, and that's fine. But just thought I'd mention that. freestatecoffeellc.com.
It will help whenever I actually get a website up. So that is, and every time I've tried, that's been one of those the paralysis of 1,000 choices kind of thing. And so, I have an email at there, and it's on my business card, and so I can get emails, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't have much of a website.
I can't find you because it doesn't exist. Okay, understood.
Yeah, I have the URL, just not the website. So
okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I like the idea of thinking in terms of an entrepreneur, and entrepreneur really, you don't even have to go that far. Thinking into, as Miles has put it, of selling something other than your time. You don't have to be an inventor. You don't have to run a shop. You don't have to make widgets. You're valuable. If you're listening to me, you're valuable. We just may not know what that value is yet. And I like the idea of thinking along those lines. I mentioned a couple of times on the show that I set a goal for myself in 2019 to make 50 things of some sort. Simple things, complicated things, woodworking things, electronics things, just make simple things. I did that for a few reasons, not the least of which was what can I make that people want to buy? What is a thing that I might enjoy doing that also intersects with a thing that people might enjoy buying? This is an experimentation process. I've been pretty public about it for that reason. This week, I spent about 20 hours this week. That's a part-time job in the shop making cutting boards out of exotic hardwoods, and I've got a significant expenditure in it because those woods aren't cheap. And I just threw a post out on Facebook. Anybody want one of these? And so far, I've got 4 people that want to buy one. So that may be a thing where I can. I'm not going to make a living selling cutting boards. You run out of your audience pretty quickly. Not everybody needs a cutting board, and certainly not an artisanal. These are functional art pieces. They're not really something you want to chop a chicken on. They're something you want to put a spread out on at Thanksgiving. So that market is pretty small, but it gets me in the mindset of, making a thing, doing a thing I enjoy, finding a market. What you're doing now is something that I have sort of led myself to, in that I'm often looking for opportunities, and I often find that I have great ideas but poor execution. And I think that's probably the Achilles heel of anybody who wants to start a side hustle. There's lots of reasons not to do something, particularly when you're in my stage of life. I've got more than full-time job. I've got kids. I've got a family. My time is precious, and fleeting, and that's the excuse I always used. Right. But I came on this show and talked about, the 10 hours of Altered Carbon I watched, with my precious and fleeting time. Clearly there was time available that I was just not doing anything useful with. So I like the idea, the mindset of always finding something productive to do with your time. Even if there's not a market that you're trying to go to, just not doing nothing will lead to something, I think.
Right.
I was going to add to that. You said before something very important, and that is that you also don't want to create a job for yourself out of your business, because it kind of defeats the purpose. And to sort of support that, I have a personal trainer who I've gone to for years. Really nice guy. He has a gym that he at the time when I started going to him, he was sharing with another trainer. And this guy was, I guess he was, getting into his late 50s. So he was kind of looking at his exit from the workforce at some point. And they're both very devout Christians. And so the older guy who wanted to get out was ready to sell his business. And I remember I was having a conversation with them after we did some training, and they were just talking about, business. Like, what I'm going to sell my business. What should I ask for it? Looking at me like I'd know. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. What's your business worth if you're not there? And he thought, oh, it's worth a lot. I've got all these clients and all this equipment and all this goodwill and all that sort of thing. And I'm like, no, you don't. If you're not there, you got nothing. And he sort of was taken aback at that. And I said, well, the business is you. You're the reason that business exists, that it's different than somebody else. It's you. And if you take you out of it, there is no business. And I think it was kind of a sad moment for him because he had to come face to face with the fact that he'd done all of this really great work and he'd helped people change their lives. And, he was a great service to the community. But the second he decided to hang up his, gloves and go off into the Bahamas or wherever, there wasn't anything to show. And that's the danger, I think, that a lot of business people face, is that they misunderstand the term entrepreneurial, which I personally hate that term because I think it's a term that's used incorrectly, particularly with younger generations. They do not understand it's business and you're out there to make a buck and you work hard and you suffer and you end up working 5 times more than anybody else. But at the end of the day, if you did it correctly and smart, you'll have something to show for it and to sell that doesn't require you to be there. If you follow that mantra, you can end up in a pretty good place. But if you follow the mantra that, well, I'm a carpenter, or I'm a, I don't know, an IT guy or a programmer, or I'm a network engineer, or I'm a videographer or whatever, therefore I'm a businessman. No, you're not. You're just creating a job for yourself in which you pay you rather than the HR department. You've just become your own HR department. So be careful that what you're going to do is truly a business, because if you have expectations that maybe one day you'll sell and get out, that without you, the business is going to function just dandy and is actually worth something.
And that's not a bad thing. Creating a job for yourself is not a bad thing. It's a step above people who work for the man. But it is a point that sometimes you don't own a business, you own a job. That's if you have Smith and Sons Plumbing, so Smith just gave his job to his son. And again, that's not a bad thing, but it's not a business. When Smith leaves, it's now Smith again. It's Son Smith instead of Smith and Sons. And it's not until they have a fleet of trucks and a group of people that they oversee that it's actually a business. And it's important to understand the difference between the two. Otherwise, you get to, the situation like Miles was talking about. You come to the end of it where you want to liquidate your business and find out that there is no business to liquidate.
Right. Sometimes, unfortunately, for a lot of self-employed people, that becomes... It happens when it's too late and you cannot do anything about it. Whereas if you just reoriented yourself at the start, then you can do something. There's a guy by the name of Michael Gerber who wrote a book back in, I think it's the 90s, called The E-Myth. And I would recommend anybody who's looking to start off on a journey into business that they might want to spend a bit of time reading that one, because he's really the master of how to create a business that can thrive without you being there, and how your business has to become systematized from day one. Absolutely. And you can find this book, used for $5 around the place. It was pretty common in its time, but I would definitely recommend it.
Seth, you looked like you were going to say something.
I was earlier. No, I don't remember exactly what it was, but like I say, the important thing is to take control of your life. And if your life is you want to work at a job, then you need to take control and invest in the skills that keep you employed. If you want to own a business, you need to invest in yourself. And a lot of it comes back to what we're saying anyway. You need to learn just about personal finance in general. That when, if our financial February, theme months convinces one person to learn about personal finance and how compounding interest affects car payments and house payments and savings rates and credit card charges, then we've helped make the world a little bit better place. So if nothing else, figure out what you want to do. And it's the same thing. I've heard this for over 40 years. Go out and try something.
Right.
And so here I am, 46 years old. I finally went out and tried something, and I'm finding I enjoy it. And if it peters out in 6 months because this cold coffee is great, and it's like, yeah, okay, but I don't want the hassle of I got to add what or whatever. But hey, I tried and failed. I lost a little money. Not the first time in my life I ever lost some money. Probably won't be the last. But hey, it was cool. And now whenever I meet somebody to talk about, I don't just have, I went to work and came home and fed the goat and cats, Now it's like, oh, well, I run this coffee business and so now if nothing else, it gives me something to talk about. So, and that's worth something. So anyway, yeah, I finally am trying something. Here I am, these many years later.
I love that he just dropped in there very casually that he fed the goat because, goat is not a word that most Americans use on a regular basis. Fed the goat. It is inspiring, I hope, Seth. I hope your story is inspiring because it is evidence of the fact that it is not too late. You said 46, right? You're 46
yes.
years old. Within a couple of months, same age as I am. A lot of people would consider your opportunities spent at 46 years old or even 56 years old. Or, Colonel Sanders took his Social Security check to open his business. He was in his 60s. It is never too late to invest in you. And that's all we're talking about here. We're not necessarily talking about, being the next great whatever. Just be the next great you. And if you're working a job, a job that you don't care about, it doesn't inspire you. It's just a thing that you do. You're not investing in you, even if that job pays really well. One of my good friends often talks about the golden handcuffs. He makes a lot of money doing a job he doesn't like, and he can't go anywhere else and make that kind of money. So he's stuck with that company. That's still, it's still a miserable place to be. And sure, you get your golden parachute at the end, but you spent 40 years doing something you didn't like. Invest in yourself. Find out A, what you like, B, what you're good at, and see what you can do for money. I've never had a lot of sympathy for the starving artist. If you are a starving artist, it's because nobody wants your art. That's just the reality of the world. And you should go paint buildings and make money. And you can still paint. You can still do a thing, and you can still pursue your passion. But to expect somebody to give you money because the product you make is something nobody wants is just a little ridiculous. Go do a thing, and then ideally find somebody to buy the thing that you did.
I saw a very, very interesting video this week. It's a Jordan Peterson, interview or something. And I know a lot of people don't like the guy. I tend to find him, as a psychologist, I find him extremely interesting. But he was talking about the psychological study of how the human brain, the human psyche works in regards to pursuit of challenges, and that it's pretty much common knowledge and practice within psychology that if you're out there striving, you're reaching for a challenge, you're trying to achieve something that might take effort, that might push you beyond where you're normally at, but you're in pursuit of something that from a psychological point of view, you actually are in probably the healthiest place you could ever be. even though you might be tired and beat up and worn out by all of the obstacles you've had to deal with, and you just need to have a break and all that sort of thing. From a psychological standpoint, you're probably the healthiest you could ever be. When you reach your goal and when you achieve what you stretched out to achieve, whether that be a business thing or art or sport or whatever it might be, and you actually achieve it, that's when all the psychologists get really, really worried about you. Because at that point, when you stop reaching, is when you can fall into depression. It's when anxiety kicks in. You can't live on the top of the mountain for very long without feeling like you're going to fall off it. And I think that that's an important message. That our human DNA, our psyche, is to be on a journey towards something, to be stretching, to be trying to reach, to be bettering ourselves or achieving something, of mastering a challenge. That's what keeps us happy. That's what keeps us centered. And if we take ourselves off that journey, we could be in a very dangerous place. So if you're working that job that you're just, you're skating, right? You can just do it with your eyes closed. It's not a challenge. The problem is that you might think you're in a good place because you're secure, you got, money, all that sort of thing. From a psychological standpoint, you are in the most dangerous place you could be. And you should be striving to better yourself and reaching beyond where you are.
Amen.
Good stuff. Whatever you're doing, you could do more.
Yeah, I mean, don't overdo it, but yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to one of the podcasts I listened to, they're interviewing, rich people or interviewing other rich people. But, like this one guy was talking about, he's like, he achieved the dream that he had, but then he was depressed because he didn't have any other dreams. And so, one of the secrets that he learned was, hey, have a goal that you're working towards, but come up with other goals along the way. So, if your goal is $1 million and that's the only goal you ever have, well, once you get 1,000,001, you'll get very depressed. But if your goal is $1 million and when you get close there, then your goal is to open a foundation to, I don't know, give pigs to sub-Saharan Africa. Then when you get $1 million, then you can fund the foundation, and then, then you can start giving pigs to Africa, and then, later you can teach them how to make bacon, and, then the world will be a utopia. So, don't just like, oh, I got this one thing, I did it, woohoo, come up with something else to do along the way. So.
There's a saying that goes, the saddest thing in the world is a shelf full of dusty trophies. And it's true. Once you've done those things and you look back on them and you're proud of them, you haven't finished. Just keep going.
That does bring up an interesting question, though, and that's, Seth, what happened this week in history?
All right, Mark. Well, I wanted to let you know that on February the 19th, 1971, new ground was broken in the criminal justice system when the first warrant is issued to search a computer storage device. So all this requirement for obtaining such a warrant, they were similar to those for searching a home. They ushered in a new era that would lead to increasingly sophisticated methods of encryption to hide computer files from law enforcement agencies. And that happened this week in history, Mark. Now back to you.
1971. Computer storage devices in 1971 were tapes. Largely, there were large. I don't even think they were called hard drives. They were large data storage devices, but clearly this was not, something in somebody's bedroom. Computer storage devices back then, unless it was I can't imagine what it would be. But that's interesting. That thing that we think of as being modern is 47 years old. 48 years old.
It's older than that because there's pictures, IBM, the first huge storage devices basically took like an airplane to carry one. They were the size of vehicles and they held megs of, not gigs, megs of data.
Yeah, I didn't mean that the data is that old, but the fact that the warrant, you think of searching a hard drive or searching digital device is sort of a new thing. Maybe 2010, 1997 at the 1971, that was a thing. That's I don't know why that's shocking to me, but it is. Quick aside, I was at a conference of some sort. This was 8 or 9 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And this lawyer was telling a story about a time when he had a judge issue a bench order. I don't know what the word for that is, but the judge said, I need you to bring me all the data that pertains to X, Y, and Z for this amount of time. And the defending lawyer got that thrown out because it was a terabyte of data and would have required several 747s to travel that, and it was just an unreasonable request. And he told that story to, in 2003 or whatever, to a bunch of tech guys, and we all just kind of went, yeah, terabyte, no big deal. A couple of briefcases. And he was stunned because apparently he'd been telling that story for decades. And every time he told it to techs, they were like, whoa, terabyte of data. But he had just reached that inflection point where that story completely didn't mean anything anymore. Terabyte, yeah, that's no big deal.
So did he check it or did he?
Well, I don't know. He just
I know. Yeah.
It was just funny that he looked at us like a response, and we all just kind of, yeah, okay. Anyway. 1971. That's a thing. So, Seth, what do you have to close us out in style this week in your show closing spectacular?
All right. Well, this is a brief YouTube video, so it has sound. This was produced by National Geographic, and this is they interviewed some super old people who were children of people who fought in the Civil War, and so granted, today there's nobody alive who has a direct connection to there, but this was in the 80s. Or actually maybe it was just like this was from 2014. Sorry, when they did this. So it wasn't that long ago, and I remember reading a story. It came out like maybe it might have been 10 years ago where like the last widow of a Civil War soldier died because there was this really young woman who married this really old man. And then they weren't married very long before he died, and she died well towards the close of last century. So we think of the Civil War as, that was in the 1800s and we're in the 2000s. And, and so they're still like, I don't know if these people are still alive, but I just thought it was cool that here I am watching a YouTube video of somebody who tells the story of their father who fought in the Civil War.
And as soon as they get all the Civil War monuments taken down, this video will be erased from the internet because we have to pretend that war never happened.
Right. But they talked to one person from the Union and one from the Confederates. So maybe this one will last, a day or two longer.
All right. So this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feed back to us. Let us know what you think by going to elementop.com and clicking the Contact Us button at the top of the page. Answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA. Fill out the form there, and that will send me an email that gets priority in my inbox. I will read that before I read all of those offers from Nigerian princes who want to give me money. Also, you can dial 559-I-AM-OPIE. I have no idea what those numbers are. I knew them at one time. And leave us a voicemail, or you can send an email to geekrant@elementop.com, and that will go to all three of us, lest you think I am filtering your precious correspondence to the other two. Also, if you would like to make my 9-year-old dream a reality so that I can quit my day job and be a full-time podcaster, you have that power. You, listener. You are the one who can do that by going to patreon.com/elementop and throwing gobs of money at me. You can make my dreams come true for only 50 cents a day.
What if they don't have gobs but only have oodles of money? Is that still?
Whatever you got. I will take anything you got. Yeah, I'm not proud. But we don't do endorsements. We don't do sponsorships. We don't do commercials, mainly because nobody's interested in sponsoring the show. But also, it helps keep us free to say whatever we want, whenever we want. And if you appreciate that, patreon.com/elementop is really the best way to do it. There are other ways. There's a tip jar right there on the website. You can send me money via PayPal. You can send me Bitcoin. You can use a bicycle courier to send money to my house. Public record search will tell you where that is. There are lots of ways you can give me money. but patreon.com is the easiest for both of us. So we'd appreciate it if you did that. Seth, Miles, any final words of wisdom before we say goodnight?
Get out there and go, team.
You'll be happier.
All right. Find something to do and do that thing. That is the best wisdom I have to offer you tonight. Night, everybody. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next week on the GeekRant. And remember, pay for what you like.
Toodaloo.
All right. Thanks, Jinda. Always a pleasure to have you around. And we will see you YouTube peoples later. Bye now.